while they keep trying to push mintage. And so I want to take your question, Fresco, and kind of redirect it here, Scotty. So we're saying that Futureverse is pushing certain collections, right? And we'll just use mintage as an example because they've had these different activations and whatnot. And I think that one of the caveats with this is we need to understand, I think, and I could be wrong with this, so again, correct me if I'm wrong, but the vision is much, much bigger. So when we're saying that Futureverse is pushing mintage, I think the way that we need to look at it is like it's Xbox pushing a game that just came on their game store, right? Where we don't look at like an Xbox game and go over to like the title of them just showing all the different games on their platform and say, oh, like, you know, that's a shit game. Why the hell is Xbox pushing that? But because we're in the NFT space and we're thinking just differently about the perspective, that we potentially have a negative connotation if others don't like it or whatnot, when really it's like, hey, this game's here for sale. It's not going to be for everybody, but it's under our umbrella as kind of a brand. You know, Beckham a minute ago said, you can see the market, quote unquote, player base wants dates. The people have got bored of the drip. And I think that was highlighted at the end of that AMA where we kind of, the first people that jumped up on stage, you know, Tybo and some of the others, they were asking questions, and then kind of Kiwiana joined, and then it was like, yo, we need dates, throw it down, and save on kind of ending that on a different note where it was like, yo, like what can we expect that way? And so I kind of agree with it. I think that I missed it because I was talking, I think, or zoned out for a second, but they said that staking was coming this month, which I think is a huge deal, just because we're kind of waiting in the limbo for that. We haven't got confirmation about how the Dex is going to work for that. They're not talking about exchanges or when things are tradable. Again, we know that on May 9th is when we're supposed to be getting the root allocation for the next Legends, and they also addressed during that the next TNL challenge is coming, which a lot of people assume is bridging, but at the same point, and I guess, Scotty, that's where we can start here, is they did clarify and say that you are not going to need to bridge your Fluf and Party Bears. There might be an incentive to do so at a point, but it's not needed, and their technology is advanced enough where it can be kind of interoperable in different changes and chains and reading it. But what was your kind of thought about them addressing, hey, you don't actually need to bridge your assets?
Yeah, you can't do. If Futureverse wants to work the way it's being advertised as an open metaverse, where it's of every single other metaverse is just part of an open metaverse. If Rockstar makes one, and I want to take my Futureverse assets in there, there'll be a Futureverse API and software development kit that allows that going the other way. So not only will your Futureverse assets not have to bridge to root, your root assets won't necessarily have to bridge to other networks to be used on them either. It's all part of the interoperability, really. It's that basically should be expected for me, that you wouldn't necessarily have to bridge. However, bridging is going to bring rewards, so it'll be interesting to see how many people are willing to pay the gas to do it. Because I think the sooner you pay the gas, the sooner you're getting more rewards, aren't you? So yeah.
Right. Well, okay. So that's a good segue kind of to the next point here, which I think was one of the things that I don't know if I felt like we recognized this during other conversations, AMAs, etc. Is when they were talking about the future score, when Builda was on, it was kind of brought up that you know, it's not necessarily real-time updating on things, but pretty close to it. But the future score updates as you go. And then further to that, they were saying, you know, like the token allocation, he didn't specify, there could be, but he didn't specify per challenge that there was a limit. And assuming that they just have an entire allocation for the different assets and it gets distributed however, you know, the assets are in the different wallets and whatnot. But theoretically, if you're somebody who's like, yo, I want to get root, knowing that the future score is the biggest change for that, essentially it could kind of turn into a whale game. I don't think it's necessarily going to do that, because you might need like a lot of assets to up your score. But if there's somebody who's super bullish on root, the way to do that is either you're buying root on a DEX or an exchange, and then the other caveat to that is if you want like a lot of it, you go out and get these assets and try to get as many as you can to increase your score with that. How did you kind of perceive the way that they discussed the future score during this?
Yeah, at first it feels like it is a little pay to win. You're not wrong there. The more you pay in, the more you're going to get out at first. But on one hand, a lot of people are going to shun at that. But on the other hand, that's you supporting the network. You deserve to be rewarded in such respect. Over time, with the Twitter Spaces and actual gamification and more click to earn dropping, people can then spend more time to maybe catch up the people that was able to put more liquidity in, and they can catch them up by spending time. This is what's frustrating me a little bit, the dancing around and actual, when people ask the question of game, people clearly mean a 3D platform game or some form of clickable game. Now, a problem in Web3 is game economy, mathematics is not a simple thing. Not everyone
True.
can do it. Most game devs do not do crafting systems and everything because of it. They're simply not good enough mathematicians to make it work on a computer. Mixing game economy with a Web3 economy that's got a real world asset in it that no one really knows the value of yet, that's going to have a future value within staking, that's also voting rights on a DAO. It's also, the list endless, isn't it? So I can understand the respect from that, where they can't really talk about how the rewards will be distributed within the future pass and stuff. But over time, it'll become fairer. I've noticed Scott Mo Meta's in the Discord, so we'll
Is
pass
Mo
it over to
here?
him and see his thoughts on it. Yeah,
Yo, Mo,
Mo
what's
Meta's
up?
joined us.
Mo, you got a ton of positive comments in the Twitch chat here about your voice, so just want to throw that out there. But as Scotty said, what do you think about the
Aw.
AMA?
Yeah, look, it was pretty much as I expected it would be. There was some stuff in there I really liked. Regarding your comments, like we want to know what the Third Kingdom looks like. Give us a visual representation, please. Because when you're looking at the trailer for the Futureverse, they're like, this is real in game. This is what it's going to look like. But at the moment, we're only seeing our assets in other people's games, like Wilder World. We'll see the Seekers, or we'll see the Fluff Rabbit running around in our Walker World. You know, so a lot of people are kind of asking, what's that user experience going to look like for the Third Kingdom? And like, can we get a snapshot? I think that's where a lot of people are kind of struggling with at the moment, like capitalizing on that vision. So it'd be nice if we get some more of that coming out. Look, I thought from a technical side, there's a lot to take away from it. I was in and out, so I missed a lot. So I'll need to go back and
Yeah,
listen to it again.
I feel like there was so much that was gone over that it's something that we have to go back and listen to.
Yeah, especially because with just the two of them there, obviously with most of those questions being staged, with Alex laying them out and Aaron knowing pretty much what answers he's going to have to come up with. You know, he was able to not be put on the spot, but very much just free flow through his previous thoughts. So for that reason, he didn't waste words, and we're going to have to go back and try and pick the little Easter eggs out of it, I guess.
So interesting question here from Dowser. He's saying, my question is, who is building TTK? Who's their game dev? And I mean, I don't think they're outsourcing it, are they? Because I mean, I thought they like acquired some of these studios and stuff in the roll up to help with that. And I don't know if any of us know.
Yeah, go on.
I mean, we've got Altered Phoenix in the roll-up, right? So if you go to the Futureverse website, you scroll down, you see Altered Phoenix. Like, what is Altered Phoenix?
Yeah,
does anybody know?
I mean, I've tried to look before and see some of the stuff, and there's not a whole lot of info on some of the companies in that roll-up. And I don't know if that's on purpose or there just like wasn't a whole lot that was like accomplished in their time, which I doubt is the case, or their stuff was so impressive they got scooped up with this. But I think one other thing, just to kind of transition the conversation a little bit, is we know in the past that Aaron's talked about how, I mean, the whole team is they want people not to know that they're on the Root Network, that there's any Web3 kind of things, right? Like it's just, hey, you play it, it's fun, everything. There's only like 1% of the user base that knows what's going on in the background. And during that conversation today, he said that the Root blockchain is bigger than just a blockchain. And I thought that those words were interesting because I've kind of only viewed it as squarely like, hey, like this is a blockchain. Look at some of these other ones that were built, you know, and have different things. But, you know, him saying that it's more than just a blockchain and at the same time saying that these different partners coming in are going to show different things that are possible. Obviously, Scotty, you know, you were really hoping for them to talk a little bit about the AI integration for the brains use case, etc. And like, is that the only thing that we're thinking of? Like, what else could there possibly be besides, you know, this AI integration? Is it building your own world and being able to do it in a cooler way that other games have had restricted? And I don't really know.
I'm about to jump in.
think-
Sorry, Scotty. I'm just
Go
about
on.
to jump in an elevator, so I'll just throw my thoughts in real quick. The marketplace with the creator tools. I feel they're underselling that at the moment. I was trying to get a bit more out of Aaron regarding it. But as far as anyone coming into this ecosystem, they're going to want to mint their own NFTs, and they need to do it seamlessly. So having that whole suite of creator tools available to these companies so they can bring their tech teams in and build on the root network with what's being provided, I think that's going to be like a fundamental aspect to how adoption happens on it and how we build inside it and how it is more than just a blockchain. It is a suite of tools. You know, I'm jumping in an elevator, but I'm still going to be listening.
No, you're
Thanks,
good.
guys.
You're good. Sounds good. No, I love that point. Scotty, any thoughts?
Yeah, and I think some people within the community might have to take a little step back on the so-called developer tools and creator tools, and I think this is the reason that they might be tiptoeing around it a little bit, because if you can't read or use an API in software development kit, you're not going to be able to be one of these people that first builds on Root. He was clearly even reaching out for people to build NFT market spaces. So if we imagine Root as Ether now, they're looking for someone to build OpenSea. Yeah, they're looking for all these little, and this is what they was thinking about use cases to be built on Root will be different kind of apps. It'll branch out. Even the Silo Smart app, you can build apps on Silo. I recently started a node and doing testing on it and stuff. So I think they're, do you know, it actually sounds like they're building a game engine aspect to it, where the AI will build the worlds for, you know, where they'll be hosted and where people will publish them is a different story. Where your land is, will it all be on your land? Can you create brand new land? Do you need Unreal Engine? Do you need like your own game and it attach it? Yeah, I think with them saying that the games are this a 3D platform game is clearly a couple of years away in their eyes on the roadmap at the moment. So before then, these developer and creator tools will be nothing but user faces and basically GUIs for applications built on the Root network. So creativity is your only limitation then if you can read and use a software development kit.
Well,
Interesting to see when that'll be released.
yeah, I mean, I think the release dates of everything is something that's on people's mind. And Brian, yo, what's up? You're the sexy son of a bitch. Appreciate you tuning in. I think that like the question still comes back to, you know, they have this grand vision, and I talked about this before we kind of got into the AMAs and whatnot. But they have such a grand vision, and I feel that one of the biggest disconnects is from the average holder to understanding what this vision is very much lost, and they need to kind of, you know, re-hone in being like, yo, this is going to take a little bit, but like the vision is absolutely monstrous, and all these different partners and whatnot are akin to that. And, you know, there's really going to be user adoption that everybody's saying, hey, we need mass adoption, when really it's, no, we need user adoption, and how do you get that? And I think that these brand things are a big component of that. But for, you know, you and I and everybody else that's in the ecosystem right now, for example, with the Buzzies, okay, we've gotten the Buzzies, and apparently they're going to be doing something maybe with Party Bears, but then also based off of Uniswap Twitter space that was forever ago, they talked about how the Buzzies are supposed to be creating these blueprints for something, and then apparently thingies are going to play a role in helping to build some of that out. And, you know, all these assets are different world builders in a certain way, but I feel that, you know, that information about the Buzzies, where apparently they're creating these 3D blueprints or blueprints overall, I don't really know the correct verbiage they used on that, but I don't even know if that's common knowledge or put anywhere. Like, you would only know that if that was or you were somebody that was tuning into the uni space, or you happen to see somebody tweet about that. So Scotty, my question with this is like, what do you think they can do to improve getting information out about these things? Is it something that it doesn't matter right now because the use case for them isn't here yet?
No, being honest, I'm a little disappointed in the lack of lore gamification. So I understand I've not got a next legend and I've not bridged, but you understand you've got 100 route for each next legend. And everyone without a next legend is sat on the side, apparently playing a game with you. So I don't quite understand that when they take that approach of the gamification. Now, if I could simply log on to the underground right now with my wallet and click a few buttons for half an hour and take 0.01 route, I'd probably go and do it for a bit. Do you know what I mean? I'd be participating in the game. Now, if every time I clicked, every 5 minutes I clicked, a little bit more lore came up, like the bear scientist and what he's doing, the blueprints for the alchemy from the consumer. Apparently, Buzzies not only build objects but build consumables. So these blueprints could just be like, get this item and that item, and I can make you a healing potion. Get this item and that item, and I'll make you an electric weapon. Get this item and that item, and I'll make you a grenade. Get this item and that item and that item, I'll build you a house. You know, it could really go that far, but just give me a quick game where I can find out what's going to happen in 2 years, and I'll be clicking away. And just give me that tiny little bit of juice. That's when that tiny little bit of juice for me clicks. Like, I don't think they understand how much of a difference something like that would make, and I'm hoping that's what the Seeker missions are. And they start, when you send your Seeker to Illyria, it comes back with information about Megacity. If you send it to Walker World, it comes back with information about the UFOs and aliens. If you send it to, you know what I mean, wherever you send it, it comes back with a little bit of lore and not just a reward. The gamification of lore needs stepping up, in my opinion. It really does.
So I think that there was a comment here in the Discord, and Scotty, I'm kind of curious your thoughts on this. So I'll position it in a different way. Fresco, you're saying, I think to this point, though, no more building or gamifying is why people get so mad when they say no one understands marketing like we do. They're clearly dismissing something. But here, meanwhile, they keep trying to push mintage. And so I want to take your question, Fresco, and kind of redirect it here, Scotty. So we're saying that Futureverse is pushing certain collections, right? And we'll just use Mintage as an example because they've had these different activations and whatnot. And I think that one of the caveats with this is we need to understand, I think, and I could be wrong with this, so again, correct me if I'm wrong, but the vision is much, much bigger. So when we're saying that Futureverse is pushing Mintage, I think the way that we need to look at it is like it's Xbox pushing a game that just came on their game store, right? Where we don't look at like an Xbox game and go over to like the title of them just showing all the different games on their platform and say, oh, like, you know, that's a shit game. Why the hell is Xbox pushing that? But because we're in the NFT space and we're thinking just differently about the perspective, that we potentially have a negative connotation if others don't like it or whatnot, when really it's like, hey, this game's here for sale. It's not going to be for everybody, but it's under our umbrella as kind of a brand. So, Scotty, do you think that analogy is correct, or do you think that we need to kind of reevaluate the way that Futureverse and Fluf are kind of pushing out some of their different partner collections?
Does Minty does digital? Does it send the physical as well as, or does it the clothing?
Yeah. Sorry, it's a clothing one.
As the digital.
Yeah.
Just make sure it's actually digital. So on one hand, they've got to push every project under the umbrella. At some point, they just have to. If some people feel like they're pushing one more than the other, it's probably because the other is doing better than the one, and then the one needs a little bump up. So that's fully understandable. From a marketing prospect, also, Phygital is a great way to spread the word of the capabilities and usability of NFTs as a use case and practicality of them moving forward to show the general public that they do have use. It's the same as the Spotify thing. When the next person, if as a Fluf holder now, and someone says to you, well, how can you use it? You just Spotify, straight to Spotify, aren't you? Or Mintage will just be another way. So those DRX1s is if you're wearing it, it's proof that your NFT is more than a picture. So that again, it needs pushing. It really does need pushing. But it doesn't change the fact that the law team need an elbow to say, listen, we need a web page of law where they can click, be rewarded, get the game economics guy in, say, listen, we need to do some low-level tiers for the people who can't just go out and buy next Legends and bridge it to play your game. They need a game too. And it'll blow up. It'll blow up that way. I'll get my nephew clicking, mate. You know what I mean? It's like he's got a future pass in that rate waiting.
Well, so
he's obviously
my next thing doesn't really have to do anything with this particular AMA, but I'm kind of curious. The Goblin Mint. I felt like that the idea with the Goblin Mint was to try to onboard as many people possible to creating a future pass. And I think that some of the...
I'm back for this one, Schiller.
Yo, what's up, boss? Yo, love it. Hell yeah. So we start with you on this one. So for Gods and Goblins, my perspective was that they were trying to get as many people into the Futureverse ecosystem as possible. So they took in a form from the community where, personal opinion, I thought some of them just didn't really make sense. They were a bit higher priced. You know, if you talk to certain community members that have been really deep into the NFT ecosystem, they probably could have helped you filter that list just a little bit more, where it's like, hey, these are like actual genuine rugs versus a collection that has like a 0.06 floor that like nobody in the right mind's gonna burn. Maybe it might get some traction, but like if your goal is to onboard, I think the list could have been improved a little bit. But ultimately, I don't know why they didn't have any kind of form of, hey, here's like a freebie goblin for some people. Obviously, like there's a bunch of us that do content creation, and even being like, yo, if you have like 5 people that are, you know, following you in any way, or you want to go on Twitter and you want to give out one, and, you know, we try to specifically make it where it's not, you know, we go on the Fluf Discord and we see people and we know, like, we actively try to get somebody who's not in the Futureverse ecosystem to have an asset. You know, we call it $20, but obviously there was some NFTs that, you know, were basically zero for it. Like it felt like the onboarding process for that could have been better. Maybe it was just like a testing phase and that was the only thing they were trying to accomplish. But I felt like they've already kind of done that with the next Legends Mint. And so this was kind of just the next step of it. So Mo Meta, we'll start with you. Going back to the Gods and Goblins and kind of the adoption there, do you think that they did it correctly, or do you think that it could have been done in a different way?
Look, it's very much a long-term play regarding changing the sentiment about how people interact in the ecosystem. With the fluffs and the party bears, like they were bought during a bull run with speculative, you know, NFT flippers who were jumping on something before we even knew about any sort of utility that might be behind them. So that unfortunately creates a sentiment around like, what is it worth? What are the founders doing to hold the floor prices up? Which is not where we really want to be moving forward. Now, we're not going to be able to stake, I don't know this for sure, but we're not going to be able to stake the fluffs like we would a crypto walker, you know? So will they end up having some sort of power like an amulet? Like for governance, you have a fluff, therefore you have voting rights and you have greater abilities. But you need to keep that whole side of the market, the people who came in during the NFT bull run, and their expectations separate to the adoption. So these people who are coming in getting the goblins, we don't want them having the same sentiment as the, you know, the OG NFT collectors. We want them coming in with holding these assets, not saying, what are you doing for my assets? What are you doing for them? You know, because it's that toxicity that's really hurting us in the down cycle. Anyone who's holding goblins through a down cycle ain't going to care. Ain't gonna care.
Well,
what
that's what I mean. But like, I was surprised that there wasn't a bit more of a push to get like that adoption, because I think that was the perfect collection to have almost like zero expectation.
Yeah, and it really is about having a whole new community built up around zero expectation, because you don't have to manage their expectations. That's it, you know, yeah. which is so hard right now, because you got people with like full bags going, you know, I listened to information you put out a year ago. And now that information's changed, and I made my decisions off what you said. And you got content creators who are, you know, taking them word for word as statements, as white paper, and then making a video saying, this is what will happen. And then that changes. And you go back and go, whoa, now I've told people the wrong thing, which sucks. So it's going to be really good to have a whole new community coming in with no expectation. But at the same time, how do we look after the OGs? Because the fluff that's coming out, well, they're going to be probably tied into another IP project. And hopefully the governance for the Fluffets is going to be done by the people who hold the Fluffs.
Oh, you
And
think
they're
there's going to
get
be
rewarded.
governance for Flufflets? Because I feel like that, like I don't know how Web 3ified they're going to make it. Like Gods and Goblins, I kind of see because they have like the junk, but I don't know if I view Flufflets as needing like governance. But maybe I'm wrong.
No, I'm just making stuff up as I go along
Okay,
here.
no, it's all good.
trying
I'm
to
just
figure out-
curious.
just trying to figure out how we feed value back to the community holding the Apex assets. You know, what
There's,
needs to happen? Yeah, jump in, Scotty.
Yeah, there's two roads being walked, baby. That's what it is. It's two roads. So the amulets and the goblins are in Goblin Town, and as far as that's the governance of Goblin Town. So their little area of Futureverse, the amulets and the Queen and what the goblins control, that's what the amulets will govern. If we think about what we've logically been told. Now you're not wrong with the fluffs and stuff, but the root and the root so you've got the amulet DAO within Goblin Town, and then the root DAO is literally the root networks DAO. So the people with the most root and the most stake are going to have the most governance. And obviously there's been talk of a yield mechanism against your fluffs and other assets to gain more root. That'll be attached to the staking. So I think there's two aspects to look at it. There's the actual game of the Third Kingdom, and within that game, you'll have Goblin Town, where the amulet holders rule. And then you'll have many other aspects, like where the bears are from. Obviously, clearly the bears, like there'll be multiple tiers of governance within the different areas of the Third Kingdom, I think. But almost definitely. It's the way it's being set up.
I'm trying to think of like what kind of like big takeaways I had from the AMA, and I feel like there's like a lot that was covered in it. But like, do either of you guys have anything that was like the biggest focal point of that AMA?
I had a few good ones. It's like the validator nodes, permissionless nodes, low stakes are possible. They mentioned low stakes. So
oh, that's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, depending on the requirements to run said nodes, anyone will be able to boot one up. So they also talked about there being fair competition if you are a small node. I feel like the Future Pass, all the talk of the score and the Future Pass might be a little bit of the delay as well, again, with the game economy and mathematics.
Yeah.
The bit that worried me a bit, and it is really worrying me, is the AI. Now, I feel like they've got a pretty decent 3D AI in the background doing bits. But the fact that he said that they've not even tried speech to text took me back a bit when considering that the AI agents can be a chatbot. You'd think that one would be being trained to be a chatbot.
I think that's an interesting point, but I don't know like if there's any games right now where I use my voice for anything. Because it like for text for sure, but
I'm just thinking that like because it's already here, OpenAI,
Right.
Whisper, you can do it now. You can chat to text, and you can stack multiple AIs at the moment. You see, and we're told that the brains are all of them in one. I'd just like to see a bit more evidence of that moving forward. And the Twitter post is extremely interesting. I don't know whether anyone knows, but for anyone listening, if you literally just Google gather Twitter data with Node-RED, you'll see a platform software called Node-RED, and you can suck any tweet you want off Twitter as long as you've got access to the API. And I think you have to pay for it since Elon took over. Well, it's relatively easy for them to pull tweets, and it's actually quite interesting to just see which tweets will get rewarded, and as people was thinking how much.
that was a great question, Mo, by the way. I'm very curious what that's going to look like.
Man, I'm just trying to hook my brothers up. Hey, I want to hook my friends up. Like, let's get that conversation started about how we can incentivize content creators who are the real proof of work. There's so much work that goes in. And encourage more people to come in so we can get that conversation going about what the future score should be rewarding to content creators and how it tracks it and everything else. Let's get that front and center. I think that's important because you guys work really hard. couple of takeaways I got was Aaron publicly saying Monica Long on the board. That's a big call to come out on a statement like that. You know, we can all find that information about Monica Long from Ripple being on the board of the Futureverse, but for him to publicly say it, that's awesome. Another one was regarding the 38D, which is the side chains for XRPL. Just needed him to say it one more time. That doesn't apply to us. We are deeply integrated into the XRPL and the automated market maker, which is an incredible opportunity for liquidity and single-sided liquidity pools and arbitrage opportunities and just value in general and super deep liquidity. So that's another massive thing to have ticked off. Those are my technical questions I really needed answered. But yeah, hey, I love doing a shit post. If I can make some root out of it, tell me how.
Well, it looks like Atom Garage just posted like an updated link of like their goblin thing. So I'm on here for anyone in the stream. You're seeing it, but it looks like it's a bit more like high fidelity. It feels smoother. I'm not sure like what they changed this. Before they just showed like the basic one, but apparently this is the gods and goblins one. But I don't know. I don't really see anything that looks goblin-y.
A couple of goblin tech cards. I've got 2 cards that are goblin tech.
Oh, okay, cool, nice.
I think it was really important for them to say, straight after this AMA, before anybody gets the chance to start FUDing, let's drop something for them to do. Let's get these people clicking links, pushing buttons, and exploring something new straight away. If that's what they did, that's a smart move, because a healthy distraction in this space is always of value.
Yeah, for sure, agreed. I don't know if because they said there was going to be like a leak of something. I wonder if that was just like the Atom car, or if they're talking about something else. But I mean, like the overarching thing that we all feel like we're talking about often is like, when are we going to be able to see kind of the actual worlds in more than just kind of the trailer? And I don't know why we haven't yet. Like, what do you think the reasoning that we haven't been able to see anything within these games besides like just a standalone instance like Atom or the trailer?
I think there's clearly just an NDA veils up. Like I keep saying it in our Twitter chat though, there's a veil up. When that veil drops, I think the game changes. I honestly do.
I think so.
All
Okay,
debate and speculate till the cows come home at the moment, but once that veil drops, it's gonna be, yeah, there's gonna be a lot. They could do a legitimate 12-hour event on stage and not cover the lot. Like, there's so much information to distribute, and there's so many veils up in NDAs and partners coming in. I think when it all pans out, probably towards the back end of summer, I think you're going to see it step up a few gears.
I mean, it's interesting. Like I don't know. Oh, hold on. Sorry, Dowser. Vinny shared game-ready characters that can be infused with motion capture data. Okay, who the hell is Vinny? Because I don't know. And why wasn't that on an official Twitter?
So Vinny's from ASM.
Okay.
He's actually in charge of creating the games. He's the games guy. He builds the games. Vinny's a really cool dude. I like Vinny. And I've been chatting with Vinny about how we can bring some mini games in early just for interaction. Like, I don't know, mate. Give me Frogger. You know, if I can have a thingy replacing a frog and a Frogger.
Yeah, man. I've got ideas coming out of all those, mate. Start again. I'll help him gamify the law, no danger.
Follow Vinny. Follow Vinny on Twitter.
Well, what's his Twitter? This is what I'm saying. If they're leaking some, why the hell aren't all the Twitter accounts sharing it? Because nobody's shared it that I have notifications on for. And like, Dow's video, what is, okay, Dow just got it. Thank you. I'm sorry. I might be following him. I just don't know his thing. Oh yeah, I am following him. Okay, here we go. There's like a 50-second video. What if I told you there existed a digital universe inhabited by a diverse range of high-quality, game-ready characters that can be infused with motion capture data, AI-generated animations, and AI-driven behaviors? Welcome to Futureverse. And here is the video. Oh, it's got that song. I don't want to play it just in case it DMCA's me or whatever, but they got a Fluf. The Fluf looks kind of fat. I don't know. The Goblin looks decent. The Boxer, I think, looks good. The ASM character looks good, but I feel like the Fluf is, like, disproportional. Maybe I'm crazy. But the Fluf looks a little off. But it's got a Fluf hat and a Santa ear, so I guess we're going to the moon for Christmas this year. But that's neat. Do you guys have any thoughts on seeing the video? I don't know if you've checked it out.
See, there was an Unreal Engine presentation recently, and I've been playing with this. So, like I keep saying, they're not showing anything that's not happening on a much larger scale in other places at the moment. I'm interested, like I say, when they step it up a little bit, because I think that's coming to, like we're saying about the AI chatbot. If their machine learning rig, if they've got a big enough machine learning rig, they can have a decent chatbot in 24 hours of computation. So it's not important compared to the 3D aspect and this kind of stuff. But it all depends on what kind of where is this hive mind based? What kind of GPU power have they actually packing behind it and stuff like that? How long does it take for them to render and compute it? It's interesting. I know this kind of information is probably boring as fuck to some people, but for me, I'm just dying to know. I'm chomping at a bit for it. Because, for instance, they've said you can run a gym for an ASM brain, and at first, the controllers of each world are going to be the people that be in charge of the gyms. But if I want a gym, I'm wondering how much I have to spend on a rig to be able to train other people's brains. There's none of that. There's no requirements for the root validator nodes, although we was told that there's low staking and permissionless. So there's so much. It's such a rabbit hole, excuse the pun.
Well, so one of the things that I don't get, and maybe one of you guys know how to answer it, but like, okay, so we have these characters, and I mean, for Fluffs, assuming that they have like their own brain, we can't really, change them. But let's say for Aepha goblins or these boxers, you can add a brain to it. Like, how is it even going to be possible for them to be like, hey, you've trained this brain X amount, you can go and buy that? Or is it like as simple as it's really not that in depth? It's more of like, hey, are you good at throwing punches? Here's the scale of 1 to 10 that you can change when you're searching NFT marketplace for it. Like, how do you get really anything generic if these guys are supposed to be able to mimic a person or whatever? Like, it feels like it's going to be just like very broad and not very specific.
Yeah, I'm going to hand that one over. I'm going to handball that one because the ASM brains, I got way too many questions because every time, it's not linked, it's not an NFT in regards to the fact it's linked to your future pass. So where your future pass goes, your intellect, your AI goes as well, and then in every different scenario in the memory tree, like that's so far out of my pay grade, the AI stuff.
I just don't get how like it's gonna work. Like I think like the prospect of it's really cool. I just don't know. Like Scotty, what are you thinking? Like when you were like, yo, like I want to get into Seekers and really be, owning some of these like AI brains. Like what I guess what was your expectations with it?
Well, with the ASM brains, I've had a little look at the genome and that. I've geeked out about it my Fightly a little bit, and basically 16 squares of 160 squares inside them squares. There's hotspots regarding abilities. What kind of abilities are in there is your guess is as good as mine. There's supposed to be a genome event for the Gen 1 brain holders soon that will reveal a little bit more about it. But it's basically, it's that grid. If you look at the ASM white paper and go to the agents page, you'll see the grid of the genome, and it lights where it's lit up. You'd imagine that's what it's good at, and where it's dark, you'd imagine that's what it's not very good at, and you have to train it over time. But which areas of the grid are what attributes, from AI chatbot to in-game NPC's abilities? Your guess is as good as mine. It could just be one bot that governs magic, one bot that governs agility, one for speed, one for computation. But then how do you implement finance bots in with a in-game NPC? It's madness. So, like I say, like more information, please.
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying. To some people, it'd be extremely boring how the behavior tree in the state, because it is just a state machine. Your TV is a state machine. It's waiting to be turned on, and then it asks what channel to go on, and it does what input you put. This is just NPCs have always been AI. from the moment they was born. These are just extremely advanced ones now that can learn and remember what they've done in the past. They just need to give out more information about that behavior tree, the memory tree, the genome matrix. As people put two and two together with like even the little possibility of the genome matrix in your brains and the fact that the egg is an electromycelium genome generator. Like, again, more information, please. Like, is that just a coincidence? Or does the egg make brains?
Well, yeah, the last update we got on brains was that, on eggs was when they updated the Futureverse website, and they had a section that said flufflets, and then said that eggs make flufflets or something, or like female fluffs and eggs make flufflets, or I don't know the exact wording, but that's literally the last update we've gotten for eggs and burrows. I mean, the latest update was they bought out the other team for the IP, or bought the IP, whatever it is, and they're doing it on their own. And there was a comment yesterday in the Discord. I need to find it. It was from Aaron about how like they scrapped the mini games or something that was going to be in the burrows because they didn't like the direction of it or something. And so like the question with that is, how long ago did they scrap whatever they were doing with the burrows, and whatever they're remaking with it or whatever? Like, what is that? Also, gas is soaring right now. I have no idea why. But like, why were some of these delays and whatnot happen? I guess we can't know like everything, but I agree with your overarching thing of like, there's just like a lot of information, and maybe the documentation just takes absolutely forever to come out with, but it's, we're back to the when.
Look, some things make sense, and some things then they go and change. I mean, as far as changing the game in the burrow goes, that was like the arcade. Like, we're taking the arcade game out, we're leaving it in Adam Car Club's garage. Makes sense there. For some reason, the arcade's not making sense, so we're scrapping it from the burrow. Okay, sweet, not a big deal. But the whole idea behind you need a male and a female, sweet, that makes sense. They've got to be in the same location. Got it. You need a burrow because they need privacy. Absolutely. Now we need an egg because obviously they need an incubation time. Sure. So all I need is a male, a female, 2 locations, a burrow for them to do it in, an egg to churn these fluffets out. Like, that makes a lot of sense. And then all of a sudden, that might not be the case anymore. It's just like, okay.
Yeah.
Worked really hard to put that combination together.
Well, even, okay,
right,
go ahead.
Right, it makes sense when there's no game. Before the 3D platform game, you haven't got a fluff to enter in your scene and travel to another scene and meet another fluff in the game. Once that comes along, you'd imagine the mechanics have opened up completely. But initially, when breeding first starts, just through a user interface on a desktop or an app on your phone, which is now how it looks like it'll be starting at this rate, that's how it's going to roll out. Maybe someone will build the breeding app en route. Again, are they building it? Are we building it? It's just there's a veil up from someone somewhere stopping all this vital information dropping down. And for a lot of people, it is boring technical information. But for the people that are itching and scratching at the bit to build and to really understand the value of their assets, it's vital information. It absolutely is.
Well, my thing with it is that, Mo, I love the way you said, oh, you need a burrow and then you need a female. It was just so many things. But like the overarching thing for the average person listening to that is, I can't afford all of those. Right. So then it brings the question, like, is this just like a rental model, kind of like Zed, where you have, a stable and you can rent out one of your horses to breed with or something? Or is it you have one of these assets and you don't have one of the other ones? Okay, like, we have separate use cases for them outside of breeding, but you need all of them to breed, no exceptions, which goes back to, the constant, we have so many questions with it. And I don't know, like, do you guys suspect that this is all going to be, a system where it's renting? Because I don't know how else they're going to do it.
It could be weighted percentages where a male has so many percent, female so many percent, an egg so many percent, and what you contribute to that fluffet will be the type of fluffet you will get. Like, you might get a lower rarity or a higher rarity by the amount that you contribute to the percentage of the a mechanic. Oh man, I don't know.
Well,
Too many
okay, so
questions.
but like my perspective of this, and I'd love to hear your guys, is I think what's going to happen is you stake your, let's just say you have everything. So you stake this, and maybe staking is not the right word, but you lock this fluff male, fluff female, egg, and burrow with like the same backgrounds. And then when somebody comes and purchases a flufflet, there's like a big pool, and it just randomly chooses from all of them, or there's some kind of sequence, and then there's like a pool of, hey, okay, this person bought $5 worth of whatever USDC. Okay, then that goes over to like a pool that gets distributed depending on whatever. And maybe I'm wrong with that, but that's just the way that I read the situation.
Maybe
Yeah,
they
I
want
was
us to
under
build
the
it.
impression. I was under the impression that the breeding was literally through the egg, but I just question the name of the genome matrix. I think flufflets potentially come with a brain, or the egg has multiple functions doing flufflets, or just generating a brain. If you take it to a certain part of the area, it can mine a brain for you. I don't know. I think there'll be different kinds of ways it's done, I suppose, and people need to try and think of ways to monetize their assets beyond the general reward, because you could own a male and a female and an egg and produce your own flufflets and do with them what you wish. You could own a female and an egg and people pay you to use them with their male. There's going to be several, if not a lot more, ways you can monetize your assets. The same with Thingy Art in it at the moment. People are struggling because Thingy Art's just 2D and no one really wants it. So the marketplace is pretty much just saturated. That's why so many were burnt for goblins. But once they go move on to 3D art and it expands, that should get more value as well. And I see from any other asset, as soon as it gets a little bit more function and utility starts popping up, the value does. But people expect to be selling a Futureverse asset to someone for thousands of pounds. That person's got to have some motivation beyond just collection and running around looking like a rabbit in a game. Unless they want to pay $3 to $5 grand to look like a rabbit running around in a game and do nothing. Some people will do that, no danger. Fair play to you, power to the people that want it. But some people be like, what the hell am I going to buy that for? Well, you could turn it into a business, churning out 100 grand a year, making brains and flufflets. We don't really know yet. It's like you say, it's like sitting in the 90s and like, how are you going to make money off this new Web 2 thing? What are you going to do? What these are you going to build an app? You know what I mean? It's like it's all so new to everyone. It's hard to call how it's actually going to go beyond what you're told in white papers.
It's kind of crazy. Yo, Hooter, thanks so much for the 27 months, Miss Yor. Guys, we're going to wrap it up here soon, but I want to kind of give you each a few moments here. Was there anything that you kind of think, like, whether it be the direction or expectations of things moving forward, things you'd love to see, things you're very excited about? Just give me kind of like overall opinions on how you're kind of feeling about this next month and what could possibly come. And Scotty, we can start with you.
I think people can be positive. What they're building with the trailers, and like you say, we've not really seen the world yet, but we've seen it through a trailer. And he was even asked about VR. We know that's years away, but I truly believe they could release the trailer landscape tomorrow when we could all run around it. But they don't want to do that. They've told us they don't want to do that. They don't want to release empty worlds with no function, no missions, no levels, no backstory. Building all that out right in front of our faces. I think they're a team we can trust. I'm new to the space compared to many in it. They might say only been in several months compared to people now who've been in a couple of years with them. So yeah, I think it's all positive. We've got our little gripes and that, but you've got to take a skeptical stance at times and attack it in a pessimist point of view, especially when you try to get masses involved, because that's exactly the first thing they do. If you don't take their perspective now and then, you'll have no way of swaying them to yours and getting them involved. So yeah, I think it's just trying to stay as positive as we can. Take part in the challenges and games that you can at the moment, and just keep your eyes open for one that you can take part in if you can't. Let's go. When the veil drops, it's game on, I'm telling you. That's all we've got to wait for, that veil to drop, these NDAs to go away, and boom, it is game on. Nothing to hide then, mate. I can't wait for that day.
Mo, any last thoughts here?
Exactly the same as he just said, Scotty. For the veil to drop, NDAs to burn off, and just a cop a face full of bazookas would be nice about now. Let's get on with it. Bring it on.
Hell yeah.
Thanks for putting this on, Schiller.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
of course. Appreciate you guys tuning in or actually joining me. Absolute blast, and hopefully we'll do it for more AMAs and whatnot. I'm going to jump out of the chat, but again, let's connect soon, lads. For anyone,
please.
hell yeah. For everyone that's tuned in right now, yo, banger, triple, double, banger. Waiting to see, again, for anyone that's not familiar with Futureverse, I think they're going to be doing a lot of crazy things. Apparently, the scope is massive, and again, if they do come out with all these games, well, maybe we will be live just a wee little bit more. But that's it for me. Again, thanks for tuning in. It's Monday, so start of your week. I guess tomorrow's Tuesday, so enjoy it, and we'll talk soon. Peace.
Now I'm just what you want. I look like you want me to, and I can't tell what's true, 'cause my world's made up of fake news, yeah. I'm realigning every facet of the space I'm in. I'm customizing all the curves that give the shape I'm in. I'm redesigning all of me so maybe I fit in. Now I'm not whining, but I fucking hate this world we're in. It's just not the kind of place I wanna be. It don't got the kind of rules I wanna see. I feel caught with no shot, so fuck not. Won't live inside your robot. Not like this, 'cause I don't think you really know who I am, or what I like, or why I don't fit inside your universe, 'cause I always come out feeling worse. No. And you don't know me, despite all your data says. These ads I confess, they must know I'm depressed, yeah. And I don't think like that, I'm not like you. Fuck you, I'm not a stat, I'm misconstrued. I'm taking my life back, but from all your garbage I scroll through. Not like this, 'cause I don't think you really know who I am, or what I like, or why I don't fit inside your universe, 'cause I always come out feeling worse. No. And I don't think like that, I'm not like you. Fuck you, I'm not a stat, I'm misconstrued. I'm taking my life back, but from all your garbage I scroll through. So I hit start like this, and the world loads like that, and I blow hearts with a kiss. I'm metamorphosing into a cat. Now I race around like Glitch, find the time to look a name on Twitch, switching lights in my brain, yeah, Pokemon's got me bewitched. I'm fucking with fans, trying to make them glow, and we take pics like this, and I like the pics so much, I'm gonna pin them up home. Now they can reach me by phone, I am doing this on my own. This kingdom will be overthrown. I'm realigning every facet of the space I'm in. I'm customizing all the curves that give the shape I'm in. I'm redesigning all of me so maybe I fit in. Now I'm not whining, but I fucking hate this world we're in. It's just not the kind of place I wanna be. It don't got the kind of rules I wanna see. I feel caught with no shot, so fuck not. Won't live inside your robot. Won't live inside your robot. Won't live inside your robot.